get this set up and all right. So everything's on. We're on time tonight. I just want to let everybody know, make it very clear that we are right on time tonight for the first time in weeks. I'm not missing or I'm not late. It feels good. It feels really good. Like I said before, I'm really happy to do this. I love getting on here, talking about Pantheon, hanging out with the community, sharing news, gossip, just sharing my opinion more or less. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I've missed being on here and just kind of hanging out. It's been crazy around here, but you all have hung out and stayed around, so thank you all. With that being said, everybody on Pantheon Radio, thank you for tuning in. I always appreciate the support that Pantheon Radio shows, the love. I mean, they're doing just a fantastic job. They're continuing to build up the platform. So if you haven't already, go check out Pantheon Radio. And that's, of course, you can find that on the mobile app, and the iTunes store. Find it on for the Android. It's everywhere, guys. Go download the app or go find them on line at pantheonradio.com. But again, a lot of good content creators, a lot of great content coming out from there. It's really fun to see the community coming together kind of around a central focus. And I've seen a lot of people coming to Pantheon Radio with some ideas of what they would like to do. So I'm excited to see what happens when they grow and as they continue to grow in the future. Again, go check it out. Make sure you're staying tuned for what Pantheon Radio is doing. With that being said, tonight I'm just going to kind of shoot the stars, if you will, about some things that I've read and seen over the course of the last week. And the first thing I want to tackle is a post. And I'm just going to jump right into it because this was kind of like a big deal for me. This was actually a really big deal for me. I don't know if everybody read it, and I don't know if everybody's even aware of it. But one of my good buddies over with the VOT, Leks, decided to put a post out there kind of addressing his earlier post. He had a thank you post. And we're going to start out from the beginning of the story just so everybody's aware of this. But so Lux has this post, I think it was a few months back at least, where the VOT guys got together and gifted him a pledge. And so he makes this thank you post and just lets everybody know. And basically he's been very vocal about VIPs in the community beforehand. He was very vocal about it. And so he made this thank you post stating that he was going to accept the gift and that by accepting the gift, he was taking on added responsibility. And basically, I think he even put in here that this gift that was paid for by Voice of Terminus VIPs, he said is a contract for him. For his 20 plus years of experience, it's a contract for him to do his job and due diligence and make sure that he's doing the best he can to help out with what progression he can. So I thought this is a nice post, basically saying, hey, I'm going to do what I can. You know, you've given me this and I'm going to make sure that I use it to the best of my ability. Well, just this last week, he released another post and it's titled Skepticism and Pre-Alpha Experience. And I believe this is the first time that I've heard anything from anyone in pre-alpha. And he kind of gave a high level of how it felt. And at first when reading this, I was kind of blown away. I was like, wow, very honest, very open. Talks about the experience early on being very rough, to be quite frank. I mean, and he continues to go into a little bit of, you know, he knows what it's supposed to be like. He's been a tester before, and he definitely understands what his obligation is. So, you know, as somebody that's done QA in past or been employed for QA type work in the past for other companies, he knew what he was getting himself into. But at the end of it, after it's all said and done, talks about, you know, again, the experience early on being not enjoyable, being, you know, what he expected to be testing. And he goes into what it is currently, and he ends by saying that, and I don't know, it kind of caught me off guard, but basically he just says that something happened recently. Huge improvements were made, both major and minor aspects of the clunkiness of the game systems that are still under development. more or less started to come together. And by the end of what he's currently involved in, I believe he says here by the end of this, I guess one of the testing phases with PA3, he left feeling like he wanted to come back. And it wasn't from what I read here, this is my interpretation of it. He started to feel like I'm not so much just here trying to, beat the nail in with a hammer. He kind of ended it with this, and I think I'll put it this way, because this is probably one of the best lines that I read out of this. He said, "I feel as though that login button is in fact a welcome home button." And I read that line and I was like, wow, that's encouraging. That's hugely encouraging. And he also mentioned that he highly recommends that, I'll read this whole sentence. I don't want to skip anything, guys. So basically he goes and he's telling that his skepticism is being transformed and he's really starting to see what he was hoping to see. And he goes in to say, for that reason alone, I can finally, after over 3 years of following Pantheon, tell people, yes, I highly recommend that you look into Pantheon. Instead of repeating my much overused catchphrase, be cautiously optimistic, there is no longer any doubt in my mind that once Pantheon is released, I will feel as though that login button is in fact a welcome home button. And I got to say, guys, that alone right there, after I read through the entire thing, that alone stuck out to me hands down the most. So if you haven't already, I'm not going to spoil this for you. I just want to let you know it's out there. I'm glad that they allowed him to share a little bit about this because I know that he was kind of an outlier. But I will say that sentence alone just really stuck out to me. The welcome home button. I don't know. I like the way that sounds. I know that, I've heard Brad say it. I've heard other people say it where they want Pantheon to be a world. They want it to be a home, a place to experience, explore, a place where you're coming into it and you're making it your own. It's not a game anymore. It's actually somewhere where you thrive. I got to say, that was encouraging. To think that we're so early, in the early stages of development still, and hear something like that come out of somebody that's working, behind the scenes to help out with that piece of it, man, that was encouraging. So if you haven't already, guys, I'll make sure I'm going to post a link to this in the YouTube video that I'll be posting online. So anybody listening on Pantheon Radio, make sure you go check that out. And for everybody else that's in the Twitch chat here, I went ahead and posted the link there for you. So you're more than welcome to check that out, read that as well. But again, he talks about how this is a very, he wanted to log in again because of the social aspect of it. It really brought him back to the things that he was missing the most in current games. So I want you to all go out there, take a look at that, read that, and if you will, give me some feedback on it. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think, when you read that? How does it feel? How does it come across? I've had some really good conversations with people who read this and said, wow, that's really encouraging to hear that. I would love to hear more, about what other people experience. I would love to see a poll about what the rest of the group in there is feeling, is doing. Are they in the same boat? Do they feel the same way? And basically, my thought as well, I think that'd be really neat. But I'm not going to get my hopes up. I think I think it's a very, it's hard for some people. This is somebody that has 20 years of quality assurance testing experience. I'm sure they've seen some very, different things within companies. So, their experience and, the way he comes across basically to me is he's somebody that's been around the block a few times. So it sounds to me like this time around the block is actually a lot different than others. So I'll leave it at that. I'll let y'all take a look at it, let y'all read it, give me feedback on it. I'd love to hear it. But I just wanted to highlight that because it was probably the first time that I've seen anything come out from any of the people involved in that pre-alpha. And I found it very encouraging at the end of it. And he really was honest and open about it. So definitely check that out. On to bigger and better things. For everybody that doesn't know, isn't aware, I'll go ahead and let you know. So we do have 2 streams that are coming up that are much more enjoyable than what you're seeing right now on Twitch, which is we have the Go Carnage stream coming up Sunday. That's 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then we also have what we're considering our all-star stream coming up on Monday. and that's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And from what I can understand, so Code Carnage is going to be getting on there, and I believe maybe we might see the Dire Lord for Code Carnage stream, which I'm excited about that. I don't know about you all. Definitely excited about that. So I'll be tuning into that for sure. But then the next night, we also have a stream with 5, not just one, 5 different streamers. And as I understand it, they're all going to be recording their own content, whether it's streaming at the time or whether it's recording, posting later. I don't know. But as I understand it, they're all going to be broadcasting their own content, their own gameplay. And they're all going to be on different classes. So we get to see like different perspectives, which is the first time we've ever got to see that. So I don't know about you all, but I'm extremely excited about seeing this. I think that's going to be a huge deal, at least for me, to see the different perspectives, how people will play different classes, what the classes look like. I know it's going to be early on still. I'm sure there's a lot of things they're working through, but man, I'm just excited to see the game and to see it from multiple, different points of view. Hey, I couldn't be happier. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be on Monday again at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So what would that be? 9 Eastern Standard Time. And as mentioned here in the chat, I believe the Ranger might be debuting in that stream. So definitely excited about that. We'll see if anything else comes about. I'm not sure what the entire class list. I know there's a few posts that showed the class list there, but I wasn't sure if that was 100% accurate or not. So I'll leave it there. I believe the Ranger may be in there. So I'm excited to see what happens, what we have to show off and what comes from that. But a lot of good ones there. So we have just to highlight the ones that are there. But I think seeing things like this going forward would be really, really neat. So we'll see. But again, that's Sunday and Monday, guys. Big streams for Pantheon. Check it out. Moving on to anything else. Any other news that's going on? Oh, the newsletter. Brad is in the stream. Expect the Ranger. Oh, he's in the stream on Sunday. You know what? Being Brad, I know that over the years, specifically, he has been a Ranger main, and the green armor and flame swords, as I recall the story, is he basically had a Ranger with the green armor, of course, but then he hacked EverQuest in the early days and got himself I think it was the Paladin epic weapon, or like 2 of them. So he ran around with like 2 Paladin epic weapons, which were the flaming swords, on a Ranger, and it was just kind of like it's ever since been just that's who Brad is. So that's what you see on the streams a lot of time with the warrior, is that green armor and the flaming. I don't know if it's like a katana or anyways, it's just a sword. But anyways, it's I'm excited to see if he comes out with a Ranger on Sunday as well. So newsletter, almost forgot again. So newsletter, guys, I don't know about you all, but we've had 3 different classes revealed every single newsletter, starting off with the melee. We had the rogue, the ranger, and the monk. Moved over to the tanks with the dire lord, the paladin, and the warrior. And then we had scimitars. There we go. Thank you. And then we had the healers come next with the shaman, the cleric, and the druid, which everybody was excited to see the druid. I think it's the first time we saw any information on them. And now we have the casters coming out. We have the enchanters, we have the wizards, and we have the summoners. I don't know about you all, but I'm definitely looking forward to this. I main a healer, so last newsletter was really exciting for me. I loved what I read. Had a great, I guess you could say, understanding of what I wanted to play after that, coming out of that newsletter. So I'm more excited about that than probably any of the other ones, but I'm really excited because usually when I make an alt, I'll make some sort of caster class. So very interested to see what the summoner has to offer. Very interested to see what we might find within the wizard. Anything new, anything that's kind of off the, out of the norm from what we normally expect. And then again, we have the enchanter. And I know for a fact, I can't tell you how many times I've had people ask me about charm when it comes to enchanters. So I know there are going to be enchanters around the world looking through the news reveal, looking through the class reveal for that one ability. And I don't know if they're going to get it or not. We'll have to see. But I do want to mention, and just for my sake, I don't think it's a make or break ability, personally. And I would love to see what happens or what comes out of the reveals and what we have that maybe we didn't have in the past that will, if we don't have a charm, what can the enchanter offer besides that? Because that was a huge thing that a lot of people enjoyed with the enchanter was the charm ability. But we'll see. Maybe they have it, maybe they don't. I'm excited to see. I know everybody else is as well that I've been talking to that are looking to play enchanters. So that's probably the biggest question I have on my list of repeat questions that come in on a weekly, daily basis. Is do I think that enchanters are going to have charm or not? I honestly have no idea, but I can guarantee you this: if they do, it'll be done right, and if they don't, it'll be for a very valid reason and done right. I have full faith and confidence based off of what I've seen so far in the newsletters, and that Joppa and the other guys that are helping out with those designs have an idea in mind and are going to follow through with it to make every class important, unique, viable at the end of it. So don't be upset if you don't see an ability. And mind you guys, if you don't see an ability right out of the newsletter, right out of the class reveal that you're wanting to see, don't be upset. We're only getting just a snippet. This is just a fraction of the abilities overall. I mean, they're just giving us just enough to entice us to figure out what we want to play. But there's still so much to be uncovered. And so, again, I want to kind of, I guess you could say, ease you into that. We'll see what happens. But, I always set my expectations to as low as I possibly can so that I can enjoy whatever comes my way. And I'm just trying to help set some of those expectations. I don't want people to get, something in their mind that's above what's intended. So with that newsletter coming out, I don't know what else is coming out in that, but we can look forward to the class reveals. We got 2 streams coming up. So right now we got a big 2 weeks ahead of us. Well, actually it's a week. It's a week. We got a big week ahead of us. I mean, we're 2 streams in and a newsletter by the time we get to the next episode of this, if you will. So we're going to have a ton to talk about. But until then, there's not a lot to talk about. So I wanted to kind of go into a little bit of theory crafting with you all. And I wanted to share some ideas, share some opinions that I've had over the course of the last few weeks, if you will. And I would love to hear some feedback on them, not only in Twitch. Everybody in Twitch is here live. Thank you so much. But people on Pantheon Radio, I know you can't respond right now. Hopefully you can get to me on Twitter or you can get to me on YouTube and post the video later. Let me know your thoughts and opinions as well. And then anyone that's watching this on YouTube later on down the road, I'd love to have your thoughts and opinions. So leave them in the comments below when you see this video posted on YouTube. Basically, my ideas are probably the most whack and out there ideas that, that can be thought of. Not really. But I understand my ideas are never the best. I'm told this on a daily basis. I have a wife and I have 2 kids that are already supposedly smarter than I am. And so I'm told on a daily basis that my ideas are not great. So don't think that just because I say something or give an idea or an opinion that it's going to be in the game. I'm simply just sharing an opinion and something that I might like to see in the future. So I was thinking about not class design, but I was thinking like zone design. And I was thinking that, nods. By the way, anybody listening on Pantheon Radio that can't see this, I have a pest in the chat. So if I start laughing about something or making some, sly off-topic comment, it's toward a certain individual who will not be named because I don't want to give that recognition to him. It's like you don't want to give him the honor of being named on the show. But no, I'm joking. We're gonna have to get Ronick on the show here to talk about some of the stuff that he's been into in the future. But we'll see what we can do with that. Until then, I'll continue on with my theory crafting here. So I was thinking about zone designs. And one of the things that I've always thought about when it comes to zone designs is a lot of times what I'll find is I enjoy choke points. I enjoy, I guess, that moment or that place in a certain zone or area in which you have to make a decision to go one way or another. And within that decision, there's pros and cons, of course. So there's certain, I guess you could say, paths that you can take that are probably harder than others. There's certain paths that you can take that are more risky due to maybe something like a train, or there's certain paths that you can take that are just less fruitful. So, but like I said, it's one of those deals where I've been thinking about zone design a lot, and I would love to hear people's opinion. But for me, I love choke points. I love points to where people of let's think of a zone where you have higher and lower people coming in, that where they're all kind of coming together. They funnel through a certain area, a certain part of the zone that really brings everybody together. And for me, I was thinking of just in general. I imagine certain zones are probably very vast. You'll probably see a lot of zones that are vast, that are large, that have multiple areas to explore, that players don't really have to interact with each other. And then you have, like, I think we saw in the stream with Helner's Cave, the zone was very tight. It looked like, when they were running through it, it looked like, wow, if you had a bunch of people running in this area, it could be tight at times. And that was neat. But I also like the thought of like zones that kind of like they come out. Maybe you come into the zone, it's large, and then it shrinks to a choke point, and then becomes large again, and then maybe shrinks to a choke point or two until it opens up into different areas as well. So thinking through something like that, I was thinking, well, what are the pros and cons of that? Like, what could possibly go wrong with choke points? And when I think about it, I think a lot of times where back in the early days of like, EverQuest, and, I'm thinking of zones, I'm thinking of EverQuest a lot of times, honestly. I remember trains specifically when it came to like one path, when it came to one exit entrance, when it came to one way the mobs could run. And normally what happened was in EverQuest, you had like the early part of the zone was usually your, I guess you could say, the lower level or easier mob types. And then towards the end was harder content, maybe even higher level and stuff like that. And I can remember that, like, if you were higher level, you could be at the end and you get in trouble and you decide, I'm just going to train this to the zone. Well, you have to truck through all the lower level individuals that are there. Really, it's painful. If you're there leveling up, if you're there just, I guess you could say, trying to get some experience or gear or something like that, and you're in any one of those environments where the higher level content is past what you're facing at the lower level, and for that higher level individual to zone out because they can't handle what they've got, they have to run through you. I just always felt like that right there, it really put a burden on you as a lower level player. So I started thinking about choke points. I love them because I think it brings everybody together. It has like a funnel point to where everybody can, like I said, everybody can at some point, some way, shape, or form be together. But I like the idea that if you walk into a zone, and let's say you walk into a zone, let's just keep it very simple for the sake of people listening. You walk into a zone, and let's just say it's a big circle at first. And what that does is, if it opens up at first into like a big circle, a big courtyard or something like that, what it does for me is it allows players to disperse outward. It allows players to kind of get out of the line of what I would consider, that train alley. So I love the idea of kind of having a zone that opens up at first. But then as you maneuver around it, or as you go kind of farther into it, it kind of comes back together again into that choke point. And past that choke point, maybe there's an additional open area. So maybe you have like a little passageway, and then past that passageway you have like another opening. It opens up, it fans out, it spreads out, or you have multiple pathways, multiple areas in which you can go. So what that does for me is it allows the, and again, keeping this very simple, guys, very generic. It allows the lower level players to spread out, to fan out. It allows them to be safe, if you will, from possible higher level trains coming through. And it allows them to still be a part of that zone. But it also allows those players that want to get back into the higher level content to go through that passageway, knowing that it's going to be risky. So it's kind of like one of those deals where you've got to time it. If it's really bad about trains and things, you've got to time it to where as a group, you're going to work your way through it, get to the part where either one fans out and opens up into the new kind of area there, or it breaks apart into different pathways. I personally like the idea of opening up into a bigger area, and then that bigger area from there fanning out into different pathways. The reason I like this idea is because I think personally what it allows for a choke point that is very high risk for the higher level to get through. Even though they're higher level, they have to avoid any content, any trains, any disruptions that are coming through that narrow passageway. It's a very congested area potentially, a lot of traffic. It's one of those you got to get through it so that you can get to the safe part again, to the safer part again, so that you're not stuck in the middle of what we'll call train alley. And then it also allows the lower level players that are in the big open area up front to disperse to the sides so that they're safe as well. So again, people can be a part of the zone. They're still experiencing that same experience. They're still seeing players go back and forth. But in the end of the day, they're not all funneled down into an area to where every time somebody pulls a train, well, they're just out of luck. So my idea when looking at a zone is to, one, again, create that large space to let people explore. And I'm talking more dungeon design than anything. Not open world, really. Not like an outdoor zone so much. More of like a dungeon. More of, I'm going into a cave. The cave has a large opening cavern, you know. And to be honest with you guys, I'm thinking of this because I go caving sometimes. And what happens when I go into this cave, this is really neat, by the way. So the cave is nothing more than a hole in the side of a mountain. It's a small, like 3 foot by 3 foot hole in the middle of rocks. And you have to slide down into this hole. And as you slide down, you drop about 4 feet and you duck and go underneath a boulder. And as you turn this corner underneath this boulder, this massive cavern opens up in front of you. And so you can imagine this cavern it's like maybe about 200 yards deep and about 100 yards wide. It's massive. And as you walk through this cavern, it goes up and down. There's rock piles everywhere and things like that. Well, then you have different little, I guess you could say, holes between rocks as you're walking through that then you can go down and just like literally slide down in between rocks until you get to other openings, other passageways. And some of them are very tight. Some of them are very narrow, very constrictive. Some of them are very difficult to scale and to maneuver. But for the most part, every time you go through a very narrow passage, you always end up at a more open area. So it's like you're going through a narrow passage, which really is tight, congested. It puts a lot of strain on your body. And, you know, mentally, it's sometimes very mentally tough for people because, again, you could be, you know, on your stomach crawling in this particular real life cave here. And then at the end of that, after it's all said and done, I guess you say you're feeling that claustrophobic feeling start to creep in on you. You see the opening, you see the cavern in front of you, you see kind of that clearing, that breath of fresh air, and you're like, I got to get there. And you just power through to it. So that's my idea with that. I'm thinking of a dungeon. I'm thinking I would love to see something where it's kind of just a small something in the side of a mountain. You walk into this hole. It opens up into this cavern, if you will. And in this cavern, you have few points that branch out. They're very congested, very tight. But at the end of those small, narrow passageways, it opens up. And those openings allow for room for you to breathe, for people to kind of like break apart from each other, for you to branch off to the different sides of the area so that you're not sitting on top of each other. And then also you have that next point to where you are looking at, okay, I want to advance. I want to continue moving forward. I want to go to the next area, but I see there's another narrow passage here. I see there's another tight, narrow slot for me to work through to get to the content. And there's always a risk that somebody's going to be coming this way towards me from ahead of me that, you know, I may not know or may not see. And I like that thought. I really do. And I like the thought that you could potentially make something that's honestly quite confusing at this point in time with the graphics, with the way that we can, you know, what we see in the streams. Like, for example, let's look back to when we had the stream called Carnage. And they killed and I won't go into names, I'll just go into descriptions because everybody seems to forget names of mobs, but they killed the spotter boss within Helner's Cave. And they kind of did this little scale up this wall And it was almost like they just jumped on some rocks randomly, went kind of around in a semicircle, and then popped up, and they're in this kind of opening. They have some stairs all of a sudden, and it looks like it goes into something else at the top of it. I think there could be a lot more of that. I really do. And I would love to see that. I love exploring. I love just kind of that finding stuff, running into it, stumbling into it, if you will. And I think congestion points like that, where you're having to climb, where you're having to scale a small wall, where you're having to, fight through a small area where other mobs are at, with always the potential risk that there's players ahead of you that may have to run past you. I enjoy areas like that. But at the same time, I think the balance comes in there. I have to have somewhere where it opens up. I have to have some room to breathe. I have to have something that allows me to kind of take a breath and relax for even a second. Because if it's like that the entire time, if I'm shoulder to shoulder the entire time with everybody, and there's just no room to breathe, no room to relax, no room to, go get a drink, go use the restroom, man, it's tough. But I really like the idea of you getting into an open cavern, having multiple passageways in a big open cavern, multiple passageways to explore, to go down, and those multiple passageways even leading to other additional passageways. One of the paths could even be you scaling up to go to a different area. One path could be you scaling down to go to a waterfall that's underground, with a stream and things like that. Then you could have another area that leads into, it's a very tight, narrow, jump up, kind of like you have in Hellner's Cave, where you have to scale a few rocks and jump up. And then all of a sudden it leads into this huge room. And all this stuff is part of a real life cave that I've actually gone to many, many times. But I love the idea of this because, for example, like that Hellner's Cave, where they scale up the wall, they go through the semicircle, and they're right there in the middle of that open area with the staircase. That in a real life cave is very similar to what I experienced. But I also want to point out that the cave that we had it opens up into what we call the Echo Room. And in the Echo Room during the winter, there's bats on the ceiling in the cave. Now, this is completely underground. It's 100% dark. There's no light source whatsoever. And so when I think of like this real life experience I have when I go caving, complete darkness, multiple passageways, tight, narrow passageways that lead into opening spaces. And, you have, on top of that, you have slippery rocks. You have a underground waterfall with a stream that get this, that during rain or different climates can fill up the passage. So you can actually have a passage underground that is sometimes underwater, or during other times it's not. I'm just saying there could definitely be underwater passages in an environment like this. And I would love to see something like that. Something to where it's not just this walk on the path type thing. Something to where you're actually having to scale the terrain. You're having to pay attention to the terrain in the utmost detail because it's changing on you. Passageways maybe fill up with water. Rocks, become too slippery to scale at certain points. So you have to come to them with someone or something, something that can either dry them out, or you have to come during a part of the day or when the climate is at a dry point to where you can actually, go past that point. And again, I'm thinking through all this as like a dungeon design. And I would just love to hear people's thoughts on what would you think would be a really neat concept. I don't need granular details, guys. I just want what would be a really neat concept for you when it comes to a dungeon that you've seen in real life that you think would be exciting to see in a game. For me, I think of my caving experience, a true caving experience. We're not talking about like, you're going to some mass marketed cave. I'm talking like you go out in the woods and you crawl between two rocks and all of a sudden you're underground for the next 6 hours exploring just whatever. I just personally, I love exploring. I love the thought of just getting out there and just finding things. I love when the path isn't laid out in front of you, when it's kind of like you have to go and just jump around and figure out where you can go, what you can do. I really like that. So A Walmart cave, 12 exits, but only one open. Day, I gotta admit, that's probably one of the more clever things I've ever heard you say. It's actually one of the more funny things. So for anybody listening on Pantheon Radio, have our good friend Dayhawk here in the chat with us, and I don't know, I don't know how a Walmart cave would work that you have 12 exits to the cave or 12 different entrances and only one of them is open at a time. I don't know how that'd work, but I love the idea of a Walmart cave. That's I don't know where to go with that. But anyways, let me hear your thoughts. Let me hear your opinions, guys. Really appreciate them. Really like the feedback. I'd love to talk more about the theory crafting. I'd love to talk more about, what other opportunities are out there that we can explore when it comes to the show, when it comes to different, things moving forward, where we have, just different things coming out on a weekly basis with Pantheon right now. There's so much going on. There's so much coming out. Like I said, we have the streams coming up. We have the newsletter coming up. We have, I guess you say the blog or the post by Lux here. And then we just have so many things going on just a weekly basis now. It's not a monthly basis like it was before, not even a yearly basis like it was even before that, but it's like a weekly basis now. So it's very exciting times for me when it comes to Pantheon. However, there's a lot out there that I think can be talked about, can be explored. Zone design, we can still explore that. I think we can still talk about that, give ideas, give opinions, give suggestions, and hopefully maybe some of those will, I don't think we'll maybe see, but maybe we'll see glimpses of those. Maybe those will spark ideas that then lead into greater things. And for me, I would love to personally see, like I said, some cave type environments that are very dark, very creepy, and very just non-intuitive. Just figure your way out, stumble through it type deal. And I'd love to see it very easy to get lost in. And I think from the looks of it, Helner's Cave might. But I don't know. It seemed like they have kind of a lighted path a little bit as well. And I'm thinking, I get it. In a game, you might need a little bit of light in there every once in a while. But what if you had a zone that didn't? What if you had a zone that really took it to the next level? And I'm going to keep that in mind because I would love to see something like that. With the way that I'm hearing them able to interpret what's to come in Pantheon, or them, kind of presenting information, how they're doing it. When I read about the climate and atmosphere system and stuff like that, I get really excited about possibilities. And so for me, possibility of complete darkness and requiring me to have a light source to some degree, that's exciting to me. It also is very exciting to me because I think of the possibility of getting lost. And that type of environment that would breed kind of like a maze feel to it, I think to me that's one of the most enjoyable things about exploring, is just stumbling into things that you didn't expect to be there. And I'm hoping that we have that opportunity and we continue to have that opportunity, as the game progresses years and years and years. So we'll see what happens. But again, hit me with the ideas, guys. Let me know. Post them on YouTube. Hit me on Twitter. Find me on Discord anytime. I try to make myself readily available and open to all suggestions and ideas. And I'd love to talk about them more. I know that I had a comment the other day on YouTube, which is basically said, "I'm glad you're not designing the game." And I was like, yeah, me too. Because these guys are doing a fantastic job, and I couldn't do half of what they're doing. Let's not even joke. I couldn't do 10% of what they're doing. But I will say there's a lot of creative people out there that have a lot of really good ideas. And Vex, as you said there, I'm just going to read that top line. I just saw that. Have a random earthquake that caused a boulder to spawn somewhere, forcing your group to find a different way. I would love to see, kind of like come on. Okay, so Vex, that actually reminds me a little bit of the Walmart cave, and I wasn't going to go into it too much, but I'll talk about it a little bit. My first thought when I heard the Walmart cave is something like you just mentioned there, Vex, where you have passageways that are consistently opening and closing due to things that are happening, whether it be an earthquake that's environmental that happens, whether it be something that's triggered, some sort of event or some sort of spawn that's triggered. Then again, I personally love the idea of having some sort of, oh wait, guys, we got to find a different way. because that way we came from is no longer available to us. And it could be as simple as you have some sort of mob that roams different areas at different times, and that mob could be extremely high level for the area, and it's just not feasible to try to get past this mob. So it could be that simple where you have a passageway that fills with water, and you may not have anybody, it may walk across it, and then all of a sudden something happens and now it's full of water. You may walk through an entrance, and then as you're in the other area doing your thing, you walk back, and all of a sudden there's a extremely much higher level, or extremely hard or much higher level mob that's standing right there in front of you. And based off past experience, that trying to take on that mob at your level would be suicide. So you have to find a different way around it. You have to find some alternative. I love the thought of that. I love the thought that the terrain changes even slightly, even if it's coordinated or in some sort of rhythm or pattern. I don't mind that. But I just love the fact that it could change to where you have to kind of think through, okay, how are we going to go? Where are we going to go? How are we going to get out? Hey, do we have a road? Can you sneak ahead and see if, that dragon's in the cave entrance over there, or if we need to go this way? Something like that. I like that. I like that. Maybe vines grow and block the paths. Vex, I hear you. I think that sounds like a great idea. Anything that would prevent you from going back the way you came or causing you to go some alternative way. I think that would be really fun. It's going to, it's going to cause people to have to learn the area, maybe even more than they originally intended to. So again, I'm all for it. I would love to hear more ideas on that. I'd love to go over more of those, kind of weed through some of the ideas and combine them, see what we come up with and things like that, because I think there's just a lot of opportunity out there, and I don't anticipate that all of it will ever see it, but I would love to just theorycraft on all that craziness, because I think eventually down the road, it may come a time where the technology's at a place, or maybe even be, now, but technology's at a place where we can start to see some of these things kind of come to light. And I don't know. I know that most determinists, these guys do a great job with theory crafting. I know they do a fantastic job. So if you haven't already, check out Voice Determinists, guys. But they do a really good job with theory crafting and stuff like that. And they've done a lot on classes and things. And I know they've done some on, terrain and zones and such as well. But man, I really have got this kick for zones right now. I'd love to hear more thoughts. On that note, not much else to talk about tonight, guys. We're going to keep it short. We're not going to, we don't have to go a full hour. We can keep it a little bit shorter, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. And I'm definitely looking forward to the streams coming up. So I'm going to end it tonight on this final note. First and foremost, make sure you go out there, check out Pantheon Radio at pantheonradio.com. Find them on Twitter as well. Find them on the Apple Store. Find them on the Android. I don't know what the store names are called. I forget. Every time I try to mention them, I forget them, and I apologize. I'm terrible at this. But go check them out, guys. Download the app. Make sure you're listening, tuning in. For everybody on Pantheon Radio, again, this video will be posted to YouTube. So if you have a comment, you have an opinion, you have something you'd like to share with me and that you'd like to kind of get out in front of everybody as well, please let me know via the comments on YouTube. Everybody else, it's here via Twitch. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and supporting me. I can't do what I'm doing without you all, so I really appreciate you all being here. I'm going to try my best to make sure that we continue to come up with something for you all on a weekly basis, and maybe even more in the future. So everybody that's been hanging out with me, listening to me talk about Pantheon forever, I'm hopeful that one day I'll be able to return the favor and give you something, in return. Whether that's, a great recording here on while talking Pantheon, or some sort of content in the future. I'm just hopeful that, we'll be able to give back to you all what you've been giving to me. So with that, guys, don't forget this Sunday, and I believe it's going to be at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We have 2 streams for Pantheon, and then on Wednesday morning, we have the newsletter to wake up to. So for everybody out there that's looking forward to Pantheon just as much as I am, make sure you're tuning in this week. It's an exciting week, lots to come, and we'll try to keep you updated on all the news and all the latest and greatest out there. Until next time, guys, thank you so much on Pantheon Radio. Thank you all on Twitch. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and shut down for tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow, or next Thursday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I might just be able to get a sentence out without having to correct myself that day. burst tonight. So y'all have a good night. I appreciate your time. Again, we will see you next Thursday. Night, everyone.